and welcome to Tuesday night edition. Welcome to the David Devine Show. David Devine broadcasted Tuesday night Halloween special. We want to start out by thanking Vic Cundiff for having this Dogman Halloween special, 5 nights of Dogman. He started on Friday, and they've had several shows, 2 a night at least, since then, and we're wrapping up here. So happy Halloween, everybody. Again, thank Vic Cundiff at Dogman Encounters and Dogman Encounters Radio. You can find the links in the description. And so thank you, Vic, and happy Halloween. Welcome, Cashew, Lord Spike Protein. Good to see you. Tonight we have two awesome guests. Obviously, we're talking about Dogman. We might get into some Halloween talk and other cryptid stuff, but who knows where we'll go. We're going to have a good time. So welcome. Thank you for being here. First of all, we have Brian Terrell from Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And happy Halloween. And also we're joined by Mr. Rob G. Rob's from the Social Dig. Rob's been on before, a good friend of mine, and he does a weekend show on Spaced Out Radio and then the call-in show afterwards. Again, Rob's links and Brian's are in the description, so check those guys out. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave. Glad to be here, man. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I'm glad to see you.
And nice to meet you, Vic.
I know that, Rob, you were I think you were gonna scare kids for Halloween. Are you still doing that? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I didn't have time because of the show that I have tonight later. I can't do it. I want to do it. I have the tools to do it, but I just don't have the time to do it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you're a busy guy. I knew you were gonna end up being so busy. That's a good thing. When you do a good job, you end up busy, right?
Yeah,
and Brian,
appreciate it.
Yeah, you do a great job. And Brian, were you scaring kids, or you're just handing out candy, or what were you doing for Halloween?
The neighborhood that I live in now, it's like we hardly ever have any kids ever. And I think we kind of gave up a few years ago. But my old neighborhood, I used to live in a small town, and I mean, it was awesome. I mean, there was all these small town kids, and they'd all run around, and I used to scare the crap out of them, and it was awesome. And until all the neighborhood moms ganged up on me, and apparently I scared a couple of their kids too bad, and they formed some kind of affirmative action group against me, and I got some pretty nasty phone calls. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right? I was going to ask you. I mean, I'd seen some friends posting pictures, and some of them have full-blown graveyards, and I know other people have done that in the past too. Where's the line? How do you know where the line is? Where,
I don't know. I guess when you traumatize a child for life, that's the line.
That's the line. When a mom calls you, that's where you've crossed the line.
Yeah, wasn't a problem when we were kids. Nobody cared if we were traumatized.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's personal growth.
I know. Yeah, I remember. I know I was going to bring this up maybe if we had a chance at the end, but it's a good time now that I remember that one house where the lady looked too authentic as the witch, man, with all the lights and that costume, that I was no way going up there. And I mean, it did traumatize. I didn't even want to walk on that side of the street. But,
and when we were growing up, we had some of the best scary movies, horror icons, and it was authentically just a much scarier time. These years today, they don't really have horror icons and horror movies to follow. Yeah. So I think that makes it a little different. But we were scared when things were scary. We were scared as kids.
Right.
Kids nowadays don't even go outside, let alone go outside after dark.
So it's sad. Yeah. So they're doing a lot of like we were talking about backstage, they do a lot of different things like trunk or treat, or they'll do it at the mall. I know tonight, you boo for those things. And I know it started snowing here in Ohio, or just in time for Halloween. So that always kind of puts a damper on things too. But I know it didn't bother us when we were kids. I know it did. But
we were hardcore.
Yeah, we were hardcore. Hope Arising says Hocus Pocus. Happy Halloween, Ho. Happy Halloween to Chow. Good to see you, Chow. So, what Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations? What do you do over there on your channel, Brian?
On my channel, primarily just field investigations and interviews. We like to go out to hot spots where we know that they're at, and we'll camp out, spend time there. During the day, we walk around, we look for physical evidence, tracks, stuff like that. And, during the night, we see what we can do to maybe attract them, to get them to come on in, maybe come visit us a little bit. It's a tough sell sometimes, but I also like to go out and do interviews. That's actually one of my favorite things to do. Is I like to go out and interview eyewitnesses at the actual location where their encounter happened and get their story, And I don't get to do it as often as what I would like to do. A lot of people kind of get intimidated when you're like, "Hey, could we go out there and have me videotape you telling what happened?" And I get a lot of people that are either too scared to go back out where they actually had it happen, or they're too busy, or they're scared of cameras. So, but every once in a while, I get somebody to say, "Yeah, I'll do it," and I'm like, I'm there. So
That's awesome. That's yeah. We were talking about that backstage. We were about how there are seems like more and more experiences nowadays, and I didn't know if that was because I just started talking about it on my channel, and then like a car, now you notice it all. But there seems to be more and more people with experiences coming forward, right?
I believe it. I mean, it's getting to the point to where when I first started taking reports, which was been about 5 years ago, that's when I actually started writing them down and documenting them. But I mean, it was like, I don't know, it was like I'd get 7 or 8 Sasquatch calls, or report for every one Dogman. And as Dogman is becoming more and more easily talked about, people are coming forward with these Dogman reports, and people, I mean, they're just coming out of everywhere. It's to the point where I'm getting just as many Dogman reports right now as I am Sasquatch reports. And it's just, I don't know, there's something happening, I don't know if it's pop culture or what, but people are feeling more comfortable talking about this stuff all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know the first question I had when I talked to Vic the first time was, but you kind of answered it with what you said with tracks. I was curious, is it a strictly a spiritual thing, or a wrong place, wrong time thing, or is it actually a physical manifestation? And he talked about him drinking water out of streams and stuff like that. So that points towards a physical and not just a spiritual manifestation, right?
Well, and I agree. I agree with that too. I think Vic's spot on with that. But just because something is a physical being, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing it can be. I mean, we're physical, but yet, we want to deeply believe that we're also a spiritual entity too. I think most people would probably agree with that we do have some kind of spiritual nature to us. And I don't see why they couldn't be both. I think it's pretty arrogant to think that we're the only creatures on the planet that would have a soul or something the equivalent thereof. So yeah, I think they're probably a little bit of both, but I think they can be killed, although it's tough. And I think that they can be hurt. I mean, they poop, they eat. I mean, they eat roadkill, all signs point to being physical.
And most of the people that come forward and the ones that allow you to go back out and stuff, Do most of them have a common occurrence that it's just a terrifying experience?
Yeah, there's parts of this Dogman phenomenon does have me kind of baffled. You know, a lot of people, they will say over and over again that it was evil or it was demonic, and they'll use those terms. But it's impossible to know how much of those responses and the words that are coming out of their mouth, how much of that is put in there by Hollywood. I mean, we don't know. We're all programmed, and you'll see this in a lot of different facets in life. And just because it smiled at you, which is something they talk about a lot, that doesn't mean anything. I used to have an old cow dog when I was a kid that smiled all the time like he was up to no good. That was just how his face was.
Right.
I got Pomeranians that look like they're smiling all the time too. It doesn't mean that they're going to eat your soul or something.
But they just sound like it occasionally, right? They sound like they're going to eat your soul
They
once in a
wish
while.
they could.
The Pomeranians are trying to.
Yeah.
Well, that's wild. And so you do most of your investigations in Oklahoma. We've had quite a few Oklahoma people. Oklahoma's coming up with Ohio is the people that we see a lot online now.
You better believe it. I
Yeah.
think Oklahoma is greatly underestimated when it comes to cryptid encounters. But yeah, we primarily do Oklahoma and southern Kansas. Although I did go to the LBL last summer. That was a lot of fun. That was weird. It was very weird being in those woods. People asked me like, "Well, what was it like?" I was like, "Man, it got dark 30 minutes before the sunset over there." I mean, It's just crazy, creepy, dark, scary woods. But we go different places. It just depends on what the finances will allow. I'm a school teacher by trade, so I can't afford to charter a jet or anything.
Right.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for the sponsorship.
So you don't have a jet yet? Rob and I both have jets.
Man, I know you're not using them all the time.
No, yeah, no. Someone's borrowing mine this Halloween.
Shucks.
Just kidding. Yeah. So how long have you been doing this?
Well, the online presence is only about 4 or 5 years old. I've been looking for Bigfoot, for a long time, really. I would say my very first case file that you could say I worked, which I had no idea what I was doing, was 1996. And when I was a kid, I was about 11 years old. I found a Bigfoot track on the family farm, and I didn't know what I was looking at then. But you know how it is when your mind starts to open a little bit. You start realizing what's going on, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's what that was, and that's what this was, and remember that one time? That's probably what that was, and so I've been around them. It seems like my whole life, but I didn't even know that Dogman existed until 2007 when I saw my first one. But I didn't even know what to call them for years. I didn't know what it really was that I saw. I thought I saw some kind of wolf hybrid dog that had gigantism. That was how I explained it in my brain at the time, and that was how it stayed until about 2016, when my brother, he sent me a podcast. 2016 when I found podcasts, and people started talking about Dogman on these podcasts. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Finally, I Googled it, and I was like, oh, that's I've seen one of those. That was one of those moments, when you're just like, oh.
So you kind of carried that around for that many years without really knowing a name or what to put on it.
No, my brother and I were calling it the wolf dog.
Wolf dog.
What else to call it? And at the time, I didn't realize there was a breeding population of them. I just thought it was a solo animal that had probably escaped from someone's house or and had gigantism. And at the time, my thoughts were, as well, it's just a matter of days for some rancher puts a 30-06 round through its ass, and that'll
Right.
be into that. I had, at the time, I didn't, I would have never guessed that there was a breeding population of these things. I mean, let
Yeah.
alone they could stand up and walk. The one that I saw was on all fours. So,
Wow.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's intimidating. That's intimidating. The standing up part. It's got to be one of the one of the creepy
Well, yeah.
things that these things have with their presence around.
Yeah. I'm pretty fortunate, I think, that I didn't see that at the time because I can't imagine. Well, I
No.
mean, I would have went straight to werewolf, and
Yeah.
I think that would have messed me up permanently, to be honest with you. The way it was then, it's like I had this gap, of almost 10 years, to be cool with it until I realized what was really going on. And I think that, there's no telling how that would have affected me mentally if I'd have seen the thing stand up and start running on its hind legs or something.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean that's just terrifying. That would be terrifying.
Yeah, that a lot of people, they see these things and, they're, I mean, I don't know how some people deal with it as well as they do. You know,
Um. Yeah.
ease
That.
into it, I think.
Uh, I'd like to say out of van life, good to see you. And Cans Quash, good to see you. And Cans is asking, doesn't your guest also teach a class on Bigfoot?
Yeah, actually, I do. That's kind of a funny story. Hold on. There you go. Yeah, I had to write a book because um, the school that I work for, found out what I do on the side on the weekends, and I kept it pretty quiet for a long time. Just kind of kept it on the down low, and but they found out, and then they hit me up. They wanted me to teach a weekend class on cryptozoology, and so I went ahead and I started writing out what I was going to teach, and it ended up becoming a book. And so I taught the class for the school, and then I went and I taught a class at the Bigfoot Museum here in Oklahoma. We've got a Bigfoot museum in Tallahena, Oklahoma. So I drove down there and I taught a class there. And then this weekend, Saturday, some guys, a guy down in Moore, Oklahoma, which is in the Oklahoma City metro area. He was like, "Hey man, you need to come to the city." And I shot my mouth off. I said, "Well, I'd be more than happy to, but I don't have a place to do it." So he went and reserved a room at the Moore Public Library, and so I guess this Saturday I'm teaching the class down there from 9:30 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And as long as I have people that want to hear it, I'll keep doing it within reason. So
Wow.
as long as as long as as long as I can afford it, I guess you could say.
Right.
'Cause I ain't making no money off of it.
No. All right. Let's see. Oh, Van Life says first kid to knock on his door is going to get $40 worth of candy. See, he's got the same problem as we're talking about.
Exactly.
There's no kids. And
Uh,
my daughter used to benefit that too from the neighbor when same thing. No one would show up. Yeah, you just dump it all in her bag, right? So that's funny. Yeah, knock knock. Cans wants all the candy.
yeah, lottery right there.
So I didn't realize there was a Bigfoot museum in Oklahoma.
Oh yeah.
You've talked there. You've made a talk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually it's really nice. The lady that runs it, her name's Tanya Kordek. She does a really good job of trying to bring everybody in, and she tries to be neutral,
Yeah.
and she does a really good job. She's kind of become like the nexus of all cryptid information floating around in Oklahoma because she did create that museum. It's like all kinds of information just kind of comes in to her. It's kind of interesting, and every once in a while, I'll call her up and I was like, "Hey, what have you heard anything cool lately?" And she'll say, "Oh yeah, somebody saw something down here at this one place," and it's pretty neat. She's like the information nexus. So
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. How long has that been open? I'll have to look that up. Have you heard of that, Rob? The Bigfoot Museum in Oklahoma?
No, I haven't. I used to live in Oklahoma as well for a few years. So in Oklahoma City and up through Guthrie as well. But I hadn't heard of it. No, no. But I
well,
did want to say there was a couple things, Brian, just that you had said earlier that I thought were pretty awesome. You stated that you take your interviewees back to the place where they had their incident, which I think is actually pretty awesome. And I don't really see anyone doing that. So I think that's pretty awesome. The
thank you.
other thing was the way that you describe these things as being like wolf dogs with gigantism. I could totally see how that would be the way that you would describe it, and that I think that's an awesome description as well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It left me scratching my head for years. I didn't know what really I'd seen. And then whenever I kept hearing that dog man term, I mean, when I first heard it, I'm thinking something like a centaur with a dog's body and a man's head, and that
Hmm.
Right.
was first came to my mind. But when I googled it, and images started popping up, and that's when I was like, oh gosh, it's like that's what I saw down there, and that just opened up a can of worms for me. I mean, at that point, I'd been looking for Bigfoot for years. Never knew that there was something else out there. And now, life was simpler prior to that, I guess you could say. So,
Yeah. What's up with the uptick? I know, and probably you've had people with other cryptid experiences as well, other than Bigfoot and Dogman. And I know, Rob, you've had on your show where you've made the nice graph full of the different cryptids. And
Yeah,
what's happening where their sightings are more fluent now, or more, more regular?
I pro- what I probably related to is you have just like Brian said earlier. There's people that are beginning to become a lot more comfortable, and I think that's essentially what it is. You have, just like within the UFO field, you have a subset of people who have seen things and just haven't told anyone, haven't reported them. And I think that's more of the same of what's happening here with the cryptids. You have people that are like, whoa, I saw something crazy. But if I go ahead and tell someone, they're going to think I'm crazy for saying that. So they hold it in, and they're just becoming more comfortable, telling people, or opening up about their experience. I think it's pretty much that. It's noted in the UFO field. That's exactly what people are becoming more comfortable now with all the things being in the news. And I think a lot of that probably bleeds over to the cryptid world as well, because I have a feeling that there's a connection in some way there, and I think that's probably why the reports are up.
I'd have to agree
Interesting.
with you on that one. I mean, if the government if Congress is having special sessions on UAPs and stuff like that, I mean, it kind of makes you wonder. I mean, well, if there really are aliens, which 30 years ago, if you believed in aliens, you were a mental case.
Yeah.
Uh, all of a sudden, we've got congressmen speaking about it. Not that they're not mental cases in Congress.
Right. Yeah.
But
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess I would say that, yeah, I think that the disclosure that's currently going on with the UFO situation is probably opening a lot of people's eyes. Um, you know, there's a lot of these people that were, 5, 10 years ago that were poo pooing everything. They got mud in their eye right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people. There's a lot of moving factors in this. I mean, there's just a lot more people coming out to people that are older than me. I'm 50, and you take somebody that's 60. They grew up in a time where if you was talking all this craziness, they'd lock you up in a mental institution.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know nowadays, if you're crazy, they just give you some really good prescription pills, and life is good. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, and so the fear of speaking out is over. I think, I still had a guy 3 or 4 years ago. He called me. Well, he actually he emailed me first from an email that um, I think he made up just so I couldn't trace it or something. Like I was really going to do all that. But then he
Right.
ended up calling me from some business, and he was telling me, he's like, well, I don't want you to tell anybody, about my sighting and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I've got a wife and kids that I got to support and all this stuff. And if I get locked, it literally said, if I get locked up in a nut house, there'll be nobody to take care of them.
Oh no, really?
And
Yeah. He
no,
took it to that extreme, right? Yeah.
he was that serious, and I'm just like, dude, nobody gets locked up in the nut houses anymore unless you tell somebody you're going to shoot yourself.
Right.
That's about the only way you can get in there anymore. It's an exclusive club now. Just because people are seeing things, they don't lock you up. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but people and the internet is just constantly growing, and I mean, we're not even halfway there yet. I'd be willing to say these people they find shows like yours, and there's people talking about this stuff, and they're comfortable, and then maybe they reach out. It's
Right.
time to change it, man. The truth is coming out.
Yeah. Like I've talked about before on here, it used to be, yeah, the 90s, uh, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. It was all about turning on Art Bell or Coast to Coast,
Yeah.
11, 12 o'clock, Clyde Lewis, and others, um, that were there talking about these subjects all the time. But just like when I was a kid and I fell in love with radio, you had to wait till everybody went to bed before people started like really talking about experiences or anything that wasn't pre-programmed or approved by a corporation.
Yeah.
As soon as the sun went down and people went to bed, they've been talking about it. But now, right now, people are finding other avenues on the internet and stuff like that. So I could see that becoming more popular. That people are coming out, but I still can't wrap my head around the government talking about it, though. I'm still having trouble with that. I'm still having a big problem.
I know. I can't wait for
Yeah,
them to start talking about Bigfoot and Dogman.
Uh, I,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's coming.
yeah, I'm sure it is, right? Because it was a big step just this year we had the UFO, the Congress, then you had the stuff in Mexico. And of course, Peru, they have these sightings and they just had a new one this week, I think.
Yeah, I heard about that. I think what it is, what's going to happen is it's like the onion. It's just going to be another layer peeled. So right, and I always say when you're introducing this stuff to the part of the public that has never even believed this or thought that this was possible, you don't want to hit them with all the weird initially. So you want to bring them into the conversation with the bare bones, the basics, which we have a lot of proof for, which are the UFOs, the craft in the sky. Then once you get them into understanding that these things are real, then you start unveiling the other things. And I think that road leads past cryptids and leads to, all pretty much anything that we could think of in this field. So Once they get in, I think they end up going down that breadcrumb, that trail, to finally getting to the Bigfoot and the Dogman and all the other various cryptids that are out there. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's and like Cassie points out here, the Michigan Dogman sighting was in 1887, and you know, uh, I think the internet has opened things up for sure. But the people have had sightings as far back as forever of probably Dogman, Bigfoot, UFOs. But at some point, it became like you guys have both said. Uh, People felt like they're going to get locked up for talking about certain subjects, and
Mm.
so you just kind of didn't do that. But the same people that, uh, like you always say, Rob, you got to have a conversation about it, because a lot of the same people that just put this off talk about ghosts or talk about other things. So it's like I'll believe in this paranormal experience, but not that one, or.
Mm.
So it's just a matter of listening to people, probably, and I think that's
Yeah.
happening. I think that's
Yeah.
starting to happen.
I agree.
Mm.
Because I've heard of people that were either Dogman or Bigfoot. Not both. Now you're talking, even tonight, about both, and that's that's something new
It's
or
true.
newer.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the Bigfoot community that, I mean, they turn their nose up at the even possibility of there being such a creature as a dogman out there. Um, it's just, it's like, well, that's just impossible, and well, why is that? I
yeah,
mean, why is that impossible? I mean, we've got records of dog-headed humans going back further than the Sasquatch. So if you look at some of the historical records, and I mean, look at Anubis. I mean, Anubis goes all the way back, and everybody's like, well, that was a god. That was a, they act like that was some kind of comic strip or something that the Egyptians were doing. But
right,
have you ever tried to carve something in stone?
right,
Right.
right.
That's a lot of
You might,
work.
even if you have a lot of time on your hands, you're not doing that, right? But yeah, they did it. The Egyptians did it. Also, a lot of people that will turn off to these subjects will openly talk about all the monsters in the Bible, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
The Bible, it's full of paranormal, supernatural stuff, and it always amazes me how these Christians will pick and choose what they want to believe in and what they don't. But when you pin them down, you're like, well, do you believe in what the Bible says is true? And they're like, well, yes, I believe that. But then you say, well, let's talk about this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, ooh. And that's always been kind of a big irritation on my part. It's like, so what you're saying is you don't believe in that the Nephilim were here. You think that's an overstatement, but yet it's totally okay that Mary gave birth being a virgin. I mean, it's they think it's completely apples and oranges, but no, it's all paranormal. The Bible is like the oldest paranormal book on the planet, probably. So,
Yeah. True fact. And also, yeah, I was looking the other day at these, fish that they have down in the Mariana Trench, and they have a lot of weird stuff. I mean, they're not just there, just anywhere in the ocean. You go look at any of these insects we have all around the world that are just strange. They had a octopus called a Dumbo octopus that had what appeared to be these huge ears, and it didn't have the long tentacles like normal. It had like a almost like just a big head with suckers on the bottom, and something that strange and that weird. And these are confirmed things that we know about on this planet. And so, and when you look at it, there's so many. If you had a catalog, there's so many of these weird, strange things. how are you gonna say, yeah, okay, these things are here, but these couple things here aren't? And it just blows my mind. It's like, why couldn't there be the Mothman, or why couldn't there be the Dogman? Why couldn't there be that when we have cataloged all these strange species of different things? It's just something that we haven't cataloged yet. Is simply what it is. And I think we'll get to a point to where we're able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Some interesting points, but yeah, right. I think, yeah, we're just got to get to a place where you can talk about it. But I mean, it is a huge uh, thing. And I know it's a thing to get because you have your own personal belief system, right? So you set that to kind of protect yourself. I understand that. But at some point, when you hear things enough, I would think to learn to grow, you'd have to listen to other people and maybe expand that belief system. I'm not saying give up on your values and stuff like that, but I'm saying there's different as you grow as a person. Yeah, you expand what you let in. I would think in normal growth, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, eventually, you start to pick up on these patterns and everything, and anybody that's talked to enough eyewitnesses, they tend to pick up on these same things coming out of people's mouth all the time, and eventually it starts to shape the way you think about it. Because, when you're talking to, 20, 30 different people that don't even know each other, but they're saying the same thing, after a while, you're like, I don't know. And, a good researcher doesn't filter everything through their own opinions. Like when I'm taking reports and I'm writing them down so that I can put them out there to the public, I don't think it's my job to sanitize this stuff. You write down exactly what that eyewitness said. It's not your story, it's their story. You let them tell it. You're not there to write down what you think's important. You're there to write down their story. And then from there on, everybody else can make up their mind about it. But that's something that you've got to be careful, because when you walk into this stuff, everybody has preconceived notions that it's gonna affect your judgment and how you interpret things. But you cannot dismiss somebody just because you've decided they're crazy. I mean, I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right, Brian.
Right.
That's exactly how that should be handled. In any case, you're the conduit to getting that story out here to be, to be viewed and
Mhm.
scrutinized by everyone else, and you shouldn't filter any of that information, because that could be a great data set that ends up being proven to be what it was, or it's something that people may look at and be able to explain away as this other thing. So yeah, you're exactly right. That has to come through unfiltered, untouched, for the public to view and say what it is. And really, it's all about coming into this, as far as what you were talking about earlier, just having an open mind, really, and just understanding that we don't know what we don't know. And we don't really understand reality. We think we do. We just understand this society that we have kind of put ourselves in. But outside of that, and the things that are actually possible out there, we don't know. And so just come at everything with an open mind. Any of these conversations that we have, just have an open mind, and then let the evidence take you this way or that way. And that's kind of how I deal with it, and that's kind of
Mhm.
my view with that.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% right. We're not as smart as we think we are. And
Right. Yeah.
our
Right.
experts that we have are educated academic experts that the general public puts all of their faith in. They don't have a clue either. I mean, the truth is, there's you could write a book on all the stuff they don't know, but they
Yeah.
have a job as the expert. Because the truth is, the general public, they need experts, because the general public finds comfort in the fact that there is somebody out there that knows all this. Okay, that's a lot. There's a lot of psychology in there, but they feel better knowing that there's somebody out there that knows all this stuff. But the truth is that person doesn't exist. I don't think that there's any single thing out there, any topic out there that we know everything about. I mean, hell's bells. We haven't even figured out women yet.
We're gonna have to add that to the cryptid list, huh?
No, I don't know.
No, no. Okay, all right.
I'm not doing any more research on that. I'm sticking with the one I got.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Hilarious.
But that's the thing. But you guys both made a great point that when you're listening to somebody's story, right, it's not your job to correct them as a listener or whatever avenue as a show host or account. It's not your job to correct. It's to listen and then if you can take something out of it, move and go forward, that's great. But yeah, it's not your job to correct the people. But yeah, I had another question, but you threw me off with studying women. Now I'm
Got your name already.
I'm thinking about that. All right, here we go. Van Life wants to know, why is Area 51 so secret?
That's a great question. They had things going on there at some point in time. It's really hard to say, but I will say this. If you ask me just my opinion, they probably aren't doing much over there anymore. What they are doing, we'll never know until we have someone from the inside that comes out, like Bob Lazar, who actually has a movie coming out here in a couple months. I think in February, we may find out more. There's not really very many people who have come from the inside to come out and tell the story of what's in there. But they would, if you've ever been out there, they have these people called the camo dudes that keep an eye on you and make sure that you stay away from the border. So if that's just their normal security detail, then okay. But it would appear that they are holding you back from finding something out, and who knows what that is. Really don't know.
Yeah, when I was out there and you take a right, after going to the little alien inn, you take a right at the black mailbox as you find it. And it's a dirt road.
Yep.
They really should have an off-road vehicle. Jackrabbits the size of this, like a fish story. And the time that we went was the late 90s, and there was a helicopter watching us, and I'm sure there were cameras, all along
sensors, road sensors, all that.
Yeah. And, I was so into it then again from Art Bell, but I don't taking a right and that long drive. I don't know if you guys have ever made that. I think Rob might have
13 miles.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that now, to be honest with you, but I had not a care in the world back then. Well, I mean, it was a little bit frightening. With the helicopter didn't help.
See, when you went, I'm sure there was probably a lot more still going on at that time, but today I don't think there's not anything extraterrestrial. I think if there's anything, maybe Black Project, probably things still going on there, if anything, but extraterrestrial stuff, I don't think they're still doing over there.
I think you're right, Rob. Yeah. Mike asked, Brian, what is the name of Red Dirt's book?
Oklahoma Cryptozoology 101.
And so, and where can we find that, on Amazon or do you have a website? Amazon. So Amazon, that made it easy. That was an easy. And you compiled that book while you were preparing to teach a class. It just turned into a book.
Yeah, teachers call it curriculum.
Oh, curriculum. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
I was just writing down what I was going to teach in the order that I planned on teaching it, and I got about halfway through it, and I was like, "Oh man, I really need to just copyright this and print it." So, and I did. So.
Oh, there you have it. Oklahoma Cryptology 101, Brian Terrell, and you can find that cryptozoology. 101. Okay.
It's the study of animals that have not been proven yet to exist by science. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
I love that.
I'd probably sell more books if I just put a Oklahoma Bigfoot on there. So,
yeah.
live and learn. It's not about the money. It's about doing the topic justice.
Yeah.
And Chow says I'm a cryptid now. She says she can deal with that. She can get behind it being a cryptid. There we go. Let's see. Cashy wants to know, can Brian share one of his wilder stories that he had investigated?
Oh, well, actually, I'll tell you about one that I just did recently. I did a video on it, and I went out and I did an interview with these people, and this was just across the border into Kansas. And I went out and interviewed this couple, and there's this little bitty town up in Kansas called Tyro, Kansas. And I mean, this town is tiny. There's a church, there's a post office, and that's it. They don't even have a quick stop. And anyway, these people would drive through this town. This man and this woman, they would both drive through this town, going back and forth to work and whatnot. And the woman had seen this dog man on the side of the road. And she saw it running across the road in front of her in her headlights in town. And it turned and it ran south. And so she's just like, what in this Sam hell was that? And so she pulled in behind it and actually followed it. And I don't know if she was brave or crazy or what. Well, the verdict is still out on that one. But she follows this thing down the road, and this thing is running on all fours down the bar ditch, and she's basically following it. It's doing like 30 miles an hour or so. And finally, there's this little tree, this little patch of trees. It wasn't even that big. It ran behind this little patch of trees and stood up and turned around and was looking at her. And I guess she kind of slowed down, let the headlights got a good look at it. And then I guess she she drove on past and kept going. Well, she went home, didn't say anything to her husband, because, of course, your husband's going to think you're crazy. Anyway, so the next day, she's driving back again, and this is at night. And she's driving back same way again. And almost in the same location, she sees the same creature. And so she sees it and it goes south the same way it went before. So she pulls in behind it and follows it again. And it went even further down. And finally, it ran and jumped over this barbed wire fence and stood by these cedar trees. And the thing just stand up on its hind legs and was just kind of looking at her, like, come at me, bro, And so anyway, so
in the scariest possible way.
I'm sure. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, but
yeah.
Well, anyway, so she goes home again, doesn't say anything to her husband, and so her husband is driving home like 2 or 3 days later. And a little bit further down the road, he sees the same creature. This creature runs across the road, runs by this old railroad box car that's sitting there, and jumps a fence and runs off into a field. And he's just like, oh my gosh, that thing was huge. So he goes home, and he's like, you are never going to believe what I just saw in Tyro. And she's just like, was it a giant wolf-looking dog? And she's like, he's like, how did you know that? And I guess they got to talking. Well, anyway, at that point, there was a local lady whose name is Pamela Ernest, who is a librarian there in the town that they live at. And she's kind of a paranormal cryptid enthusiast. She's more of a ghost hunter, I think, than a cryptid hunter. But they reached out to her. And then she turned around and reached out to me and said, hey, we've got an ongoing case here. And so anyway, I went out there and I tried to do an on-site interview, but it was right there on the highway, and so I didn't get to do a really good video of it. But we did go out. We got several pictures from the actual locations where it took place, and we went around and we were looking at the area, and I think we figured out why that dog man was coming into that area. And it's because for this little bitty tiny town, they've got every third house down there has chickens, and every fifth or sixth house has goats. I mean, it was like there was more livestock in that town than there was human beings by a landslide. And they've got that church there that has a daycare where they take care of little kids. And so every night they've got a dumpster full of food right there.
Right. Okay.
So and the town doesn't have any street lights to speak of. It's only got, just a couple right there on the main drag. Other than that, these creatures could walk around down there in the dark and never be seen. I mean, it was like the perfect scenario for them to come into town. I mean, why go out and hunt when there's free food over here,
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was really cool. And that just happened. And I mean, I find that whole scenario fascinating. And I had another young man that reached out to me just recently, and but his encounter actually happened a year ago in November of 2022. But he was a ranch hand down in southwestern Oklahoma, and I guess he had a run-in with a dog man, and I guess he was out checking cattle, and he pulled out onto the county road, shut the gate behind him, got on his four-wheeler, pulled around the corner there were some bushes and stuff. Right there in the middle of the road, right in front of him, is this dog man standing there on all fours. And this kid he handles, cattle every day, so this kid is going to be, I say kid, he's 17 years old. The encounter happened when he was 16. This kid shows animals and everything else. I mean, if there was a person qualified to estimate the weight of one of these things, this kid would be it. He handles and weighs animals, and he does all this stuff. And this kid Zane, he's just like, man, that thing was 500 pounds or more. He says it was probably 500, 550. And he said, this thing is standing right in front of me on the road. And I was just like, well, what did you do? He goes, I just kind of sat there and stared at it for several seconds. And he said it was kind of facing him like 3/4 of the way, kind of at an angle at him. And I was like, how long did that last? He goes, I don't know, maybe a few seconds. And then he said it twitched at him, like that, He said it didn't charge me or anything. He just kind of did that, like if you're trying to draw somebody off sides, or if you're trying to like start a fight or something, you kind of do that thing. He said it did that. He said he just lost it. He's just like, I'm out of here. So he punched the gas on his four-wheeler and spun around and went all the way around the section, just to keep from messing with the thing. And he said about a couple days later, he saw what he thinks is the same creature again. He said he was pulling out onto the road again, and he looked up and there's a hill up there. He said this thing is standing up there, standing upright, watching him. And he said all of a sudden this thing jumped down on all fours and it started running at him from like 300 yards out. It scared him real bad, So he punches his four-wheeler gas, and he tries to go around this corner too fast. He ends up sliding off into the bar ditch and kind of wrecking his four-wheeler. And this is in the daytime. And I guess this thing was just charging straight at him. And then all of a sudden, when he went off into the ditch and wrecked his four-wheeler, the thing just stopped and stood up and was sitting there looking at him. And I guess he just sat there and watched him for a couple, I don't know how long, I don't know what he said, but he said the thing just sat there and looked at him and cocked its head to the side and was like, well, this ain't no fun or something, and just turned around and walked off into the bushes on two legs. just vanished. He's just, it's like, well, this game is over. I can't chase him. So, I mean, how weird is that?
Yeah, it's weird. And you know what? Listening to all the stories, especially uh, for the people that are coming forward, maybe for the first time, I noticed that one pattern is that when they probably never even contemplated the subject before, they all experience a large weighted animal. You said 500 pounds. He described it as, and I've heard that out of different people who have no reason to other than just to explain their experience. They've all mentioned the weight like that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's really weird how they look different. They have slightly different body features. Like their chest is wider than a normal wolf. If you go online and you look at pictures of wolves, and if you look at a front on picture of them, I mean, they almost look, I don't know, anorexic or something. They're so thin, they're so skinny. Their front legs, they almost touch each other when they walk.
Right.
And
Yep.
that was one of the first things I noticed about the one I saw is its chest was wide. It was probably as wide as my chest, and it had all these muscles in the chest, and it looked like how some of those pit bulls look.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're all beefed up, and muscled up. That's kind of what it looked like, and their hind legs, it seems like, are longer and they're lower to the ground. It's like their chest area. I think if you was to actually get a good look at one standing, you know, abreast or from the side view, I think you would see that their haunches, their rear haunches, are lower to the ground than that. But they look different than most canines, I think. But it's just like a Sasquatch. I think there's a lot of different ones of them out there, and they're just like people too. I mean, you know, your body looks different than mine, and you're probably grateful for that. And we're
No,
all
sir.
built
No.
different, So, and I think these things are built different too. So, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure. I still got more questions than answers. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've heard some people tell accounts of Bigfoot. Some people that have saw the same ones over and over and over through the years, as well as Dogman. Do you think that they allow the person that sees them to see them?
Yeah, some people say that they get marked, by these creatures, and I would. I'm not going to say that I don't believe that, but what I am going to say, I would kind of challenge them a little bit when you believe that hook, line, and sinker. Is it that the animal has marked you and it's following you, or has it always been there and you're finally paying attention? Because once you see one of these things, you're looking. I mean, whereas before you're driving down the road daydreaming. When I'm driving down the road, I'm looking. I'm looking for one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that had me so curious. Was it right? Were you marked? If it was a spiritual thing, was it something that was going to find you, whether you lived in California or England? Was it going to find anybody that walked down the street that day?
Yeah. Anybody that has any evidence, one way or the other, I'd like to hear it.
Right.
I try and consider myself an evidence-based investigator, but I haven't seen any evidence for or against. And but hey, who knows? Maybe they do mark you. Maybe they do follow you home. I know Shane Carpenter. He thought that they followed him home. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a pretty smart guy, and I may not agree with everything that Shane Carpenter believed. He doesn't have to believe everything I believe for me to respect him.
Right. Yeah.
But he brought a lot of stuff to the table, and he brought a lot of good theories, up on the plate. But he believed that they, followed him home.
Right.
I don't know.
I'd like to say hi to Kelly and also Salty. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have just a few minutes, guys. There's two more. Well, there's more than two, but there's one question I picked out here for each of you. And then again, we'll plug your stuff and then say thanks to Vic. And again, happy Halloween to everybody. I really appreciate it. It's been an awesome show. It's went so fast, but I know Rob's got he's got to be over at Space Style Radio, so he's got to fly in his jet over there since we have those. But the first question is from Mike Jones to Red Dirt. Do you know the three different giants, original Nephilim, Raphaim, and the last I forget, could they be Bigfoot?
Okay, so basically you're asking me if I think that Bigfoot are Nephilim. First of all, I'm not an authority figure. I wasn't there.
Right.
I don't know. But if you want my opinion, whatever it's worth, my opinion is I think, yes, I think that Sasquatch and Dogman could possibly have Nephilim DNA in their bloodlines. However, let me just say this. I believe it's more likely that we have Nephilim blood in us. You have to realize that the human race was the original target of the Seed Wars, if you know what the Seed Wars are. And we were the ones that they were trying to corrupt originally. Okay, we were the primary target. So if any of our three species, human, dogman, and Sasquatch, if any of them are more likely than another to have Nephilim DNA in us, I would say that would be us. So that's my answer to that. I don't think that them being Nephilim or not being Nephilim, I don't think it has as much to do with everything that we think it does. You know, we try to use the Nephilim stamp to explain all the woo stuff. You know, my personal opinion is the woo can be explained with, it's just technology that we don't understand yet. So that's my take on that.
That's a fantastic answer. I'm glad that I read that, and I'm glad Mike asked that. And we could probably do an hour just on that answer right there. That's excellent, excellent answer. And the question for Rob is, Rob G, do you have callers who experience cryptids or UFOs? And what creatures or craft is he hearing about?
That's a great question. And the short answer is definitely yes. Both cryptids and creatures, crafts, and it just varies. There isn't any particular one, and I think that's the big thing about this phenomena is that it actually just encompasses a whole lot of different things. So you find yourself, if you listen long enough, you'll hear so many different stories, and they're never the same. Some of them have similarities, but in a lot of cases, a lot of people have just totally different experiences. I can tell you, and actually that opens up a quick plug for the Social Dig, because we actually have a live call-in show on the weekends that we do right after our Spaced Out Radio. So it starts at like 11:15 Pacific time, PM. And we have just callers that call and talk about their experiences. So that'd probably be, if you wanted to indulge in that'd be a good place to go. Or if you have an experience that you want to talk about and get off your chest, that'd be a good place to go as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, and you bring people up on the panel too, so that's a great. Yeah, check that out again. Both Brian and Rob G's links, YouTube names are in the description below, so make sure, go over there and hang out and like and subscribe. All right, guys, I want to thank you for being here. It went way too fast. That last hour alone, Brian, I could love to hear another hour about that, but I want to thank you, Brian. Brian, again, it's at Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations, and the book on Amazon, Brian, is help me out. what the name of the
Oklahoma
book?
Cryptozoology 101.
Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can just put in books by Brian Terrell, and it'll show up. So
Okay. All right. I'll try to add that in the description after the show too. And thank you for being here.
yeah.
Again, Red Dirt Cryptid Investigation, and then Rob G. We got to let Rob go. Rob's hosting Spaced Out Radio tonight. Instead of scaring the kids, he's gonna be working and having a good time doing a
We're
good
gonna
job.
scare some adults. So it was nice to meet you, Brian. I hope to talk to
Yes.
you again soon. Dave, you already know we'll be talking to you very, very soon. And Cashew in the chat, thanks for having me today. Happy Halloween.
Absolutely. Happy Halloween. Again, thanks both Brian and Rob and Vic Cundiff for the 5 days of the Dogman Special. You can check Vic's channel at Dogman Encounters and at Dogman Encounters Radio to see the full list of the people that did all the shows. They had Vic starting on Friday and then full schedule wrapping up with us here on Halloween. So again, thanks for joining us on this special Happy Halloween Dogman special. And we will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks